My home was built on unstable ground. It hunched at the edge of the marsh, and salt water licked eagerly into the foundations, wearing away at them with every wave. When the sun went down, the wind drifting lazily through the cord grass sounded like a chorus of whispering interspersed by the slow beat of cicadas chirping. My brother was loud at night, and the sound drifted up to me from the basement. I listened to the music of the marshes and tried not to pay attention, staring instead at the moonlight streaming through the gaps in my window blinds, like a child peeping through their fingers. Papa was a practical man. This meant that my non-school time was full of chores or taking notes from one of my many mule-doing textbooks that he kept around our house. It meant that when Neil Armstrong was walking on the moon, he'd grunted and clicked off the TV. "There's nothing useful out there," he said. "Only stardust." I disagreed, but I did it silently. Papa was not a man who was used to argument. I wondered, though, what it was like to be so high above the world and to feel so free. Most of all, Papa's practicality meant that he kept my brother in the basement with a sort of grim determination, and he was sorry that it had to be done, not that he did it. I could hear Papa's quiet footsteps as he walked to the front door. I could imagine him fumbling for the key that he had worn around his neck for years, back to back into the dimness of my memory, letting the skin-warm metal dangle from his fingers like a waterfall. He would walk around the back of the house to the entrance of the basement, nestled starkly near. He'd twist the key in the lock and descend to the room where my brother was kept, and right there my imagination failed me. My brother would be fed, certainly, but other than that, I did not know what happened down there in the dark. When hurricanes came, we lugged up sandbags from the nearest town and settled them in front of the doors and over the shower drains in case the septic system overflowed. We built a dike around the entrance to the basement, piling the bags high. Papa locked the storm shutters in place, and I watched through the slivers of unprotected glass at the sides as clouds collected overhead. There had always been something strange about my little brother. As a toddler, he'd bitten anything that had come up within range of his teeth, sinking in his teeth and not letting go until his mouth was physically pried open. He had a fascination with knives and a discomforting interest in anatomy. That's what he claimed, at least. When he was found carving up a rat, he just wanted to know what it looked like on the inside. I'd find him sitting at the point where earth gave way to the marsh, dragging his fingers through the pluff mud. He'd be staring at the spoonbills and egrets, and I knew that he was trying to figure out how to catch one. It had been hurricane season, with the three of us, me, Papa, and my brother, all huddled together in the kitchen. Something crashed outside and the lights flickered overhead, flashing madly before turning off all at once. One of the storm shutters had blown away. I could see out behind the house. There's a power line sparking and writhing on the ground over the fallen branch would have broken it. It thrashed, electricity erupting from the severed end like fireworks, and my brother gasped in delight, already running for the door. Papa yelled for him, but he didn't stop. He ran right out into the storm and was drenched in seconds, rainwater dripping from every limb. Papa turned to go after him, and he made it to the downed power line. He took it up in his tiny hands and held it above his head, laughed, with sparks raining down around him. Papa gasped and went rigid beside me, and together we waited for the electricity to burn him. It didn't. There was fire spreading all around him and enough power spraying out from the wire to kill an elephant, but he just played in the rain, wrapping the wire around his wrist and even shoving it into his mouth for a moment. After the hurricane was gone, I woke to him standing over my bed, his hands around my throat. He didn't squeeze, just stood there staring at me, letting out an awful wheezing laugh until Papa came and pulled him away. Papa took him to the basement after that. "There's something of the devil in him," Papa said. "I'll find a way to make him right." That was all the explanation that I could get out of him. Papa liked to clack his prayer beads between his fingers while we were eating dinner, usually in front of the television. He prayed before every meal, head bowed over his clasped hands, but he never forced me to do the same. His faith was the subtle thing, but it was passionate even in its silence. "How long are you going to keep him down there?" I had asked in a whisper. "As long as it takes," Papa said, his voice filled with his typical ragged pragmatism. After so many years, I knew the contours of the key. I traced it in my hands when Papa had held me after a nightmare, watched it dangle against his bare chest while he worked outside, seen it in the glint of a bonfire. It came unhooked from his neck in a second, and he slept on, unaware. There was a hair hanging in loose patches from my brother's skull. He was crusted over with dirt and grime, and a smell of decay. A heavy chain around his ankle tethered him to the back of the room. "Hello, sister," he said. Papa had spent years trying to cure him the stain on his soul, the thing that made him invulnerable to regular injuries and slipped violence between his ribs like a sword. But when I looked into his eyes, I did not see a family in them. "If I let you go," my voice broke, I was trembling. "If I let you go, will you hurt people?" He seemed to seriously consider the question. "Maybe. I don't want to." I didn't know if he was lying. Still, I knelt and I unlocked the shackle around his ankle. He was gone in an instant when I thought of astronauts on the moon. I hope that he can find that same freedom.